afternoon, folks, and welcome to another episode of BrandSpot podcast by Global Brands Magazine. I'm your host today, Spar Sharma, and I'm joined by the head of corporate communication, Mr. Hisham Abu Alfateh. I'm so sorry, Hisham, if I may have mispronounced your name. I do apologize for that. But how are you
No,
doing
actually, it was
today?
perfect. It was
Okay,
perfect. Thank you very much.
thanks. That makes me feel a lot more comfortable right off the bat. So, Hisham, why don't you tell me a little about yourself?
Well, I think you did mention my name and my title. I do manage I am the head of corporate communications for the National Bank of Bahrain. I also ensure that I manage the whole brand aspect of the National Bank of Bahrain in terms
Right.
of marketing it, establishing it, positioning it, and then also ensuring that it stays intact and that we all of us, the stakeholders of MBB,
Mhm.
um, breathe and practice the whole kind of values of the organization, the promise, the vision, and the purpose of
Right.
our existence, I would say. Other than that, I'm also in charge of, I do manage a very important area, which is the whole business marketing, business sponsorships,
Oh, wow.
and the overall bank's sponsorships and partnership agreements that happen with different stakeholders, with different organizations, whether it's government, semi-government, NGOs, ministries, colleges, universities, schools, sports, youth activities, entrepreneurs, and the whole 9 yards when it comes to positioning the bank
Right.
where we want it to be positioned.
I think that's amazing. And, talking to you, I'm very honored that you've given us this opportunity to interview you. And I look forward to learning more from you from this podcast. Uh,
Thank you.
so, yeah, if you don't mind, I just have a few questions for you. And
Sure.
first, the first being, what element of a brand do you think is the most important from your perspective?
I think from my perspective, it's people. And we've tried this many times. We've tried
Mhm.
this over and over and over again. And this is how we ensure that the National Bank of Bahrain gets positioned correctly through its people. It is the people who make the organization the great place it is. And this is a saying that
Mhm.
is engraved in our personality, in our DNA, in our culture, in the way we actually think, in the mindset that we operate. In fact, we just won, as an institution, recognition by Investors and People with a gold status. And
Oh,
this is
wow,
a 3 year.
congratulations.
Exactly. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the sweet words and compliments. And this is evidence that one of the most important elements for any brand is its people,
Mhm.
the internal people and the external people. So when I
Definitely.
say people, it's reflected in both areas. One, the internal customers, who are
Mhm.
our employees, our staff, and then the external people who are our customers and
Mhm.
vendors and partners.
Right.
So a lot of institutions probably deal with this in a different way. So when they talk about their customers, they talk about their business customers. In
Mhm.
fact, for us, it's equally important to satisfy our support customers. I mean, if we have consultants, if we have
Mhm.
vendors providing us with certain service, from procurement to general services to any other organization that provides us with look and feel services, with design, brand elements, production, cleaning, general maintenance,
Definitely.
all
Mhm.
that is reflected in the way we actually deal with people. Now, it also gets reflected through so many different elements that we have, whether
Right.
it's being, it's all the different elements that the different people inside and outside the organization would feel, touch,
Mhm.
hear, listen to, or see. And these
Right.
are all the customer touch points, I would say, internally
Mhm.
before externally. So I think for us, it's worked brilliantly. It has allowed us to incorporate everything we do through the people element. In fact,
Right.
our purpose is enriching the lives of generations. So there
Mhm.
you go, people. Our brand promise is closer to you. There you go, it's people.
Definitely.
And our values, the 6 values that we operate in, are very much people oriented and they are based on pride, respect, teamwork, accountability, ethics, and transparency. Again, people, and it's all about people.
Definitely. I mean, and that's a very interesting perspective. Thank you so much for giving us that. Usually, everyone that I've spoken to before, have spoken about logo and different kinds of the brand elements. And you talking about people, I think, just shows how well the integrity of National Bank of Bahrain has been established. And I think that's very important for any business moving forward. So that's a very interesting
Uh,
take on it.
I mean, you shouldn't be surprised that a Bahraini institution would say this. I'll tell you what I mean, Sparsh. It's because Bahrain, we've always positioned ourselves as the financial hub of the Middle East, but also Bahrain has been also labeled as a melting pot of civilizations or a melting pot of cultures all coming together. We are the first country in the region that has introduced education, both for male and female education. We are the first industry. We are the first organization that has set up financial institutions, banks, stock exchanges, all that stuff. So, and then we also carved the history when it comes to the whole aviation aspect. So all in all, it has always been the people of Bahrain who have been its gems. So usually with different countries, you find, or different organizations, you've got hidden gems. No, our obvious gems have always been the different people who are either Bahrainis or people who reside in Bahrain, and ensure that we all live up to a standard of genuineness, straightforward, transparent approach, kindness, and a very open-minded approach to many. I mean, we talk about transformation. That's another very probably important element for any brand, to ensure that it is digitally friendly and digitally capable. But our buzzword was not digitalization; it was transformation, and because with transformation comes a mindset. So you need to ensure that whatever we do is exactly, and that is exactly what the customer requires. That's why if you look at our mission statement, it is we promise to connect with you, to listen to you, and to be able, and we promise to provide you, to try and provide you whatever you need, when you need it, and in a way that works for you. So if you look at that mission statement, it's all about being agile enough to ensure that when we transform based on customer centricity. That for us, it's a very customer centric approach. And again, the word customer for MBB is internal and external, vice versa. So that's what I say. I think if you look at it, this is exactly what the whole Team Bahrain spirit in Bahrain is all about. We've got a set of different organizations, all national companies and semi-national, national companies, government and semi-government, who have tagged along to what we call the Team Bahrain spirit. And that's why you see the Crown Prince and Prime Minister always ensuring that he mentions the word Team Bahrain, because it is the set of group of companies that have always make Bahrain shine. And they're a big group of companies. So I'm just saying that the word people for Bahrain is two faces for the same coin. Now, if you've interviewed any, which I'm sure you've done, any CEO or chairman or any board members who are actually residing in Bahrain, or living in Bahrain, or are Bahrainis, I don't think you'll be surprised that the word people, directly or indirectly, will pop up in each and every conversation that you've had. So that by itself tells you how connected we are with the people and how intertwined we are with the DNA of Bahrain.
Right. I mean, I 100% agree with everything that you've said. Like, people, and definitely changing the mindset and building a business around customers is 100% the way to go, and for any business to be successful. So yeah, thanks for sharing that. Moving on to the next question. So Hisham, according to your knowledge, what are essential elements of interactive public relations?
Ooh, that's a tough one. And I don't want to be theoretical, to be honest, but you tell me about the essentials of public relations. I mean, okay, let me answer this in a completely different way as well, in a completely different way. You can take a lot of certifications when it comes to public relations. So you can study it for 4 or 5 years, then you might go and try and master it by taking some vocational training programs or some specialized personalized certifications, all right? Yet you need to understand that when it comes to corporate communications, and depending on the industry that you're in, this is not a 1 + 1 = 2 world. In all honesty, this is not a 1 + 1 = 2. With corporate comes a whole world of possibilities in terms of whether it's a press release that you need to push out, or an article that you need to write, or a photo caption that you want to ensure that the media pick up, or that we have certain elements that are related to for example, so many different other approaches. So I mean, what I'm trying to say is a word could have so many different meanings when used in different contexts. A sentence or a phrase could make or break the institution. not being a, and I think the other word that I want to mention is credibility.
Right.
Credibility, oh my God, that is of extreme importance. Credibility determines if you make your institution a leader, a sort of a market maker, leader, or a follower. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
with credibility comes becoming a knowledge provider. With credibility comes becoming a benchmark for other organizations to see, follow, touch, and try and ensure that they want to do kind of the same or replicate what was being done. I'm just saying, there are with PR, rather than going through a textbook approach, the real world of PR is credibility, is agility. Right. Again, here you go, another word that has repeated itself, agility, because you cannot have a day that is similar to the day before or after when it comes to corporate comms. If we're doing the job right, it means that we are on constant lookout for different opportunities to be part of, different messages to send across that tally with the overall strategic vision of the organization. And all in all, we need to ensure that we put ourselves out there and associate ourselves with certain brands that complement us and we complement them. So then comes the other element, which I'm going to be very open to talk about, even though many people of my kind would not be very comfortable talking about it, is the ego management. Now, and I know this might be something that is not available in the textbook because of the different cultures that we get these textbooks from, but ego management is of extreme importance. With ego management comes politics, comes sensitivities, come cultural differences, come different traditional backgrounds, comes language, and language could sometimes be devastating because if you have a barrier over there, then it becomes an actual problem. Right. But then comes the clarity of information. Now, we fall into a trap sometimes, which is that even though we are a communication department, but you could fall into a trap where we are not communicating enough sometimes with each other. Right. Just because we assume that everybody knows what's happening just because they're being in one unit or, within the four concrete walls that we're all kind of working. Right. So communication, and what I mean by communication is crisp, clear communication. My wife and I sometimes have fallouts, and then we discover that the fallout is just because we're under stress. And why? Because we never were clear with each other as to what is expected of each of us in a certain event or a birthday. It could be something as silly as a birthday planning or ridiculous as birthday planning. Right. But the I thought you meant this and I thought you're going to do that, that kind of miscommunication, and it causes misalignment. Definitely. So for me, when it comes to the essentials of public relations, again, I was just repeating myself probably for the third or fourth time. I don't want to go through a textbook approach because the real world is completely different than the textbook. Now, the textbook teaches us a lot of essentials, that are a lot of fundamentals that we can and should replicate and introduce to our lives every day at work because it makes us more organized people. But with also communications or PR comes the planning. Okay. Planning is key. We do not fail because we want to fail. It is because we fail ourselves into planning properly. This is very, very, very essential. With planning, I mean having a calendar of events, a calendar of releases, a calendar of efforts being distributed, yada, 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 yada. The whole 9 yards that come with it. And then the last thing for me comes the execution style. The quality of the content being delivered is determined by the quality it is delivered in, or by the execution style it has been delivered to or in or through people. Because in today's world, everybody produces, for example, short videos or animations or 3D, I don't know, educational snippets or something like that. But what about the conceptualization of that idea? What about that execution style that it is produced by or executed through or to for the people? This is very important because this becomes a main differentiator, of what and how the messages come across. And this, all what I've mentioned, allows the opportunity for the organization to be positioned in a certain aspirational theme or value that we want, or a position that we want to, and at the same time allows perception to be created about the organization, which is key because
Right.
in today's day and age, perception is reality.
Definitely. And you did mention about planning, Mr. Hisham. So I want to ask you, was there a time where you faced like a planning issue, and because of that, the execution did not go favorably, and how you intervened and probably fixed that in the planning stage, and then again execution? Do you have like a real life example of the
Let me
situation?
let me let me give let me give you an example, Sparsh, about something that's happening tonight. Okay, so
Mhm.
tonight we've got an event that is
Right.
happening, which is the end of year celebration for our employees. Now, let me tell you what happened. I come to the morning. I come to work, everything being planned. It was fantastic. The last
Right.
couple of weeks was all planning towards it. Everything fantastic.
Mhm.
I come to work and first call I get is is the event planner or the event
Right.
organizer
Mhm.
who has set up the stage, the microphones, the surround system, etc., etc., etc.,
Mhm.
calling me to tell me that he's changed the size of the screen.
Oh, okay.
Even though it was a
Mhm.
14 by 4 meter screen, now it's 15 by 4 meter screen. So 1 meter, what harm does it do? No, it
Right.
does a lot of harm because then I have to resize all my videos. And
Mhm.
if I've got very heavy content, a very heavy material, then I have to render. Render takes about 2 to 6 hours, depending on the type of machine, depending on the quality or the effects of the video requires,
Definitely.
etc.,
Yeah.
etc., etc. So believe it or not, when I came to work at 8 o'clock in the morning, thinking that I'm going to be out by noon so that I can go home, have lunch with my family, and then come back to the event at 6 p.m.
Okay.
It's 2 o'clock, 2:30 or 2:25 my time right now, p.m., and I cannot move because the videos are still rendering. So now I have two ways to go about it. Either to get pissed off, very
Mhm.
angry, and start yelling, kicking, screaming, breaking, or
Right.
I have to be very agile and ensure that I think of the bigger picture and
Mhm.
start making certain changes and taking certain decisions to ensure that I actually have an event tonight and that my content that has been produced with a certain quality sees the
Right.
light. So what do you think I chose? Obviously the latter.
Yeah. I mean, that's definitely a very strategic way of handling it. Because if I was in your position, I definitely would have, gotten a little angry initially and probably butchered the whole thing. But yeah, it shows from your experience that we should remain calm in certain situations, especially situations where things don't go as planned. So definitely. And
Yes,
Mr. Hisham, I have another question for you. Uh,
please.
So the trend over the last few years has essentially just been, to social media marketing. And so in your case as a bank, what strategies can you use to increase your online engagement in social media?
Oh, that's a very, very nice question. I mean, this is something that we're all facing. We're all facing, I think, internationally, not only locally
Hmm.
or regionally. There's a lot of, I would say nowadays there's a lot of dump on the social media. So there's a lot of content, and you and I could be facing a lot of problems on what is worth viewing and what is just not for me to kind of even consider. Now, this creates a problem for institutions like ourselves who want to be leaders in whatever they in our areas. Now, this puts a burden of pressure on us.
Hmm.
By thinking of more creative ways of how to reach people,
Hmm.
how to engage them, how to increase our online presence, and how to ensure that we activate our ideas correctly and properly. So I tell you,
Right.
with that, the whole digital marketing and social media management are two of areas that are and will continue to be the talk of the day for
Hmm.
every day, for
Right.
365 days a year, for each and every person sitting in my shoes or even managing the space. So what
Hmm.
do? We have to come up with creative ways. We have to increase our. There's something that I need to mention over here, Sparge. Uh, You know, a good 3, 4, 5 years ago, everybody shifted from sort of newspaper and magazine advertising and a bit of outdoor advertising towards
Right.
digital, Google ads, social media, etc., etc., etc. Today, you see, I would say, not us going back to traditional ways, but I think the word to use, and I'll be very blunt about it, so my dear listeners or viewers, please don't be alarmed with what I'm saying, but I think we're sometimes fed up from the number of ads that appear on the social media platforms when we're actually trying to enjoy ourselves or just have a nice, decent 10 minutes to ourselves with our mobiles.
Right.
Like, how many ads appear to you when you want to watch a video on your YouTube, or when you're just going through your Instagram account, trying to get to a certain point, or trying to see what your colleagues, what your friends, what your family is doing or being on, and you get bombarded with ads nonstop, whether on the story or the feed, etc., etc.
Yeah.
So we have taken an approach of creating, for example, different competitions. And we try to make the competitions short and sweet, less complicated, and very much quickly absorbed. We talk about creating snippets of, we engage in the whole educational financial literacy pathway, where we provide tips and taps, I would say. We've come up with certain did you know aspects. We're trying to ensure that the content we put out there is valuable for people to actually consider following us and using us as the benchmark in every aspect of the business, whether it's the business aspect, the entrepreneurship, the community service, the sustainability aspect, or the retail, so in every single aspect that we try to ensure that we lead or penetrate or attract the population towards. We try and produce what I would call personalized content for each and every target audience that follows us. This puts a lot of pressure on us, because all of a sudden we've all reduced our budget spends on classic and traditional advertising means, but now we're actually spending them to produce content over the social media.
Right. So you said personalization. How do you determine the demographic, and how do you personalize ads based on those demographics?
Well, again, thank you very much. That's a very, very interesting question. We use a lot of statistics. We use a lot of data to ensure that we create the reach that we want, and so that we also advertise on certain platforms or different platforms, where we have our target audience. So we depend a lot on statistics, on information. We produce our own infographics. We have monthly and quarterly reports, as well as annual reports to track what we do when we do it. We calculate return on investments. But again, in our job, not everything can be calculated, because word of mouth can't be calculated. You know what I mean? And in a country like Bahrain, word of mouth is very important. But you see word of mouth being reflected on the social media platforms and the number of people who will view, so you can see word of mouth being reflected one way or the other in the reach statistic, but not on so there are just so many different ways where we go about it. But as I said, we base it on science to ensure that we satisfy our customers' needs and provide them with content, valuable content, wherever and whenever they are.
Definitely. And I had another follow-up question related to that, because we are kind of talking on content and social media. So how has the social media impacted the PR industry, and how important is content in the banking industry?
Very important, crucial actually, because at the end of the day, we are talking about a point. So let me answer the first part of your question. How did the social media impact PR? I used to handle PR of an airline, of the national airline, a good almost 20 years back. And I was having a beautiful, easy job, because I was focusing on newspapers and newswires. That's all what I needed to be worried about. And again, some TV and some radio stations, which was not very often our target audience. But what do you think I focus today? every single person in the world has become a television station on his or her own.
Right.
Everybody could, within 5 seconds, damage my institution. So I want to make sure, I'm not talking about the legal aspect here. I'm not talking about me running off to somebody to sue him or her because he or she said or made a different statement or a different opinion that upset me. I'm not talking about these things. I'm talking about recognition. I'm talking about positive perception. I'm talking about managing customers' shortfalls sometimes that get translated into bad service being provided, even though that's not the case. You know?
Right.
So, and the fact that where do you start reciprocating if something does happen? It goes all over the social media and goes all over the WhatsApp and different communication tools that we have. How do you control it? How do you ensure that people receive the corrected information? How do you ensure that whenever anything goes wrong or happens, it's actually controlled? How can, if I made a mistake a few years, like 10 years back or 15 years back, it would be easy. I'd just call 5 or 6 different newspapers that I have. I say, look, I've made a mistake. Can you please not publish the news tomorrow or publish the corrected version, which I'm just about to email you? Can I afford making a mistake today? It will take me 1 minute for the mistake to be a public mistake.
Right.
I don't have time. So it has affected the PR industry big time because everything has turned and become real time. And real time means risk, and risk means a lot of making and checking systems that need to be embedded so that we don't reach to a point where it becomes a very so that we don't have an unfavorable situation being created.
Definitely. I mean, and I 100% agree because in Canada, when I worked for a small plastic fabrication company, I realized that a lot of reviews, they were posted up immediately after the transaction went through, and that review was seen by thousands of people. So to nullify that damage caused by one single review, it would take like weeks or at least days of effort to, make sure that it wasn't that, and the customer actually was satisfied at the end of it. So I definitely feel the pain on that. It's very stressful to constantly keep managing and making sure that the brand is always on track. So I 100% agree with you on that. And in terms of that, so this is a completely different question. I'm so sorry to change the topic. But in terms of branding, what are some of the critical aspects that an organization should focus on when launching a new product? Like in your case, it would be different services. So yes, yeah.
I think let me talk about sort of let me twist this to a very nice way of putting what we focused on the last kind of 3 years in MBB. And this was something that I will try and quote my CEO because he was asked a very similar question, not about brand, but about the whole business aspect and how MBB got transformed. When we started the transformation, there were 5 different aspects that we focused on, or 5 pillars, which was people, the whole digital transformation, the business aspect, the acquisition of a certain institution, which is Bahrain Islamic Bank, the Islamic arm, and the whole responsible banking aspect, which is the whole sustainability drive. So if I try and put those pillars under what our brand today, MBB, speaks and breathes, I think this is it. These are the 5 pillars that go under it. And I think if you look at these 5 pillars, I can create and I could write you essays of how we can ensure that MBB got it right by focusing on each and every one of these pillars, because each one of these pillars, people, digital transformation, business, acquisition, sustainability, is a project on its own. And you can have a project manager for each and every one of these to ensure that you penetrate and you take sound decisions, make the correct investments, and ensure that we reach our final destination. So I think for me, these are the 5. Again, you notice that most of my answers are not the usual kind of Google answers that would be found, and they're based on very personal, professional experience that has gone through a number of, that has been achieved or acquired through working for a number of different institutions in Bahrain and outside Bahrain. So I've worked in the telecom industry, the financial, the educational, the banking,
Right.
the aviation, as well as the kind of lifestyle, concierge management, lifestyle services. So I've always been a service person, working in different organizations that bring different services. I wasn't ever been on the product side. But I think I've gained enough experience to ensure that when I look at all these kind of 5 pillars, which I will repeat again: people, digital transformation, business, acquisition, and sustainability, I think these are very key to any organization. Now, somebody would tell me, but not every organization can acquire another organization. I said, that's not the point. The point is what is meant by acquisition is the teaming up, is the let's look at the holistic picture. How can we approach other institutions to affiliate ourselves with, or to team up with them, or to create things together? Because I believe that every organization, when it works with other organizations and they have a very kind of a very educated partnership or pathway so that they deal with each other, they will have a wholesome product. And as we say, two brains are definitely better than one.
Right. And I have one last question for you, and then I'll let you off the hook. I'm so sorry for taking up so much of your time again. Do apologize.
No, it's fine. Go ahead.
Yeah. So the last question for today is, what direction do you see the media and communication industry heading towards?
In what sense, Sparsh?
Just probably like new trends that are coming forth, and new steps that your company, or just companies in general, should probably take to make sure that their objectives and missions are completely streamlined, and what they're trying to sell and put forward are understood by the customers. So essentially kind of like streamlining information, I'd say, probably.
So, okay, the reason I answered is because as a PR professional, corporate communications professional, for me, media and PR are one, right? Because one produces content for the other, and the other ensures that it carries the news in a different style. However, I think the shortfall that's available nowadays in the media is, and me being a media person myself in my extracurricular activities, I would say, is the style of the news that's being shared. It's not fun. It's not fun. It's dumping and splashes of information that I can't create a sense of belonging towards. I'm not sure today if I'm loyal to a certain news channel that I was loyal to before. I'm not sure that I am loyal. And when I say loyal, as in dedicated, and I ensure that that organization is completely 100% trustworthy and completely unbiased.
Right.
I'm not sure we've got this nowadays. I think we need to ensure that we actually maintain neutrality in the way that the media carries the news. I think fair and square, and not being advertising driven is what is required.
Right.
But I want to ensure that all the mediums that are available for us to kind of portray our news on, or our services or products on, are actually credible. And I think the word credibility with the media is of extreme importance as well. So I would love to see neutral, unbiased, professional, stylish business accounts being established on so many different channels, so that it enables us to walk the talk, carve a niche in today's world.
Okay, perfect. So thank you so much, Mr. Hashim, for giving us your valuable time and all of your inputs on today's episode. And yeah, that's all the time that we have today. I will definitely forward you the links when the podcast goes live. And yeah, I hope that we can chat again in the future. It was really insightful.
Thank you very much. My absolute pleasure, Sparsh, and my regards to the full team. Thank you.
And best of luck with everything and the event today as well.
Thank you very much. We need that.
All right, I'm sure you'll do well. Right. Bye.
Have a good day. Ma'as salama. Bye-bye.